peasant tops. Who wants them? Who's got too many of them? So I'm using one of my favorite patterns to create a basic peasant blouse. This is the Rita blouse pattern from Charm Patterns. I highly recommend it. Except I'll be adding a few extra accents to it, that being the black ruffle at the neckline and a bow in the front. Well, you know what they say, no such thing as too much of a good thing. So I'm gonna make my 15th one, but this one's Halloween. He likes being held like this. I hold him like this when I brush my teeth in the morning. He really likes it. Yeah, hi. I originally wanted this blouse to be made with this orange and black polka dot fabric, but it was sold out across the entirety of Southeast Michigan, so that wasn't an option. I'll blame the quilters for that one. Instead, I'm using this one, which is very cute. I just start by laying out all my pattern pieces on the folded over fabric and pinning them down. This fabric doesn't really have a pattern orientation, but I'm still keeping that green line in mind. Once they're in place, I cut them out, making sure to get all the registration marks for lining the pieces up. I use the pattern as is, but there's one adjustment I make to it, which is on the front bust piece. This is meant to be cut on the fold, but I pull the edge back about an inch. This gives me 2 extra inches of ruching in the front. The second adjustment I make is by lowering the neckline. This pattern looks nice on others who are more endowed in the bust area than myself, but on me it tends to ride up a little too high for my liking. With the piece folded in half, I'm cutting in at about an inch down from the top and then following through in a gentle curve to the outer edge. And that's all the pieces I need to cut out for now. I'm going to start assembly by attaching all the torso pieces together, leaving the left side open for the zipper later. Then I'm attaching the 2 bust pieces together, also leaving the left side open. After sewing all the pieces, I'm going to hit it with the iron and press them all flat. Next I'm going to prep the bust pieces for ruching. I'm sewing 2 seams along the bottom edge where I want the ruching to be. Don't backstitch when you do this. My stitch is at the widest the machine will let me do right here. I prefer to always do 2 stitches for this because it's stronger and will put up with all the pulling I subject it to in a moment. Nothing is worse than pulling in a seam and then the thread just snapping midway through. With that in place, I'm going to painstakingly pull the threads on one side and slide the fabric along. This causes it to gather up. I make sure to leave the ends of the string long so I can easily grab and pull on it. I usually gather more than I need and then just pull it out later, trying to match it up with the torso piece it'll be sewn to in a moment. All the while making sure to keep the gathering even. I'm going to attach the bust to the torso now by lining up the right inseam and then pinning along the rest. Next is the 2 sleeve pieces. I'm just going to sew them together at the side seams right here. And then back to the main piece. I'm going to prep for the zipper. I'm pinning the top part near the armpit to sew it together on the previously open side. I'm only sewing about 2 inches from the edge, leaving the rest open. Then I'm going to press the seams down to make it easier to pin the zipper in. I'm using a 12-inch invisible zipper. Could have gone a bit shorter, but I wanted to be safe. To attach the zipper, I'm just pinning on the open edges like so. It should be placed so it's open from the bottom up. Then I'm going to sew along on the inside so there's no visible seams from the outside. Once the zipper is attached, I'm just going to cut the remaining part off and I'm going to stitch down the raw end so the zipper doesn't slide off the track. Next step is to prep the hems. I'm stitching about 1/4 inch from the edge of the fabric to help me fold it more evenly. Doing this for both the sleeves and the bodice. Then I'm going to fold the fabric in, using that seam as my guide and pressing it all flat. Once that's pressed, I'm going to fold it again at about 5/8 an inch and press it again. Then I just sew it all shut. I'm using contrasting thread from the fabric by choice, by the way. Not because I didn't have cream colored thread and didn't want to leave my house to get some or anything. I sew the bodice hem completely shut, but for the neckline and sleeves, I'm gonna leave a small gap so that I can insert the elastic in later. Then I can attach the sleeves to the bodice, lining up the inseam and pinning outward. Here I'm moving on to the black ruffle I'll be adding at the neckline. I wanted to make my own trim, so I cut out 4 long strips of some leftover fabric I had that I'm going to sew together into one long piece. These are roughly 30 inches by 4 inches. Once it's in one piece, I'm going to fold it in half hot dog wise and press it. Then sew it closed at the bottom. Then I'm going to prep it to be ruched, which I do like I did with the bodice earlier. Then it was at this moment I realized I'd messed up. See, the fabric I used frays a lot. That's fine, because my intention was to sew it to the first hem fold and then again on the second fold so all the loose ends would be tucked away. But I made it too short. So in a fit of despair, I hauled ass to Joann's to get some pre-made black ruffle trim because I am a fail here! But this trim is a lot nicer anyways. I'm just going to sew it down to the neckline's edge. The last step for the main bodice is to insert all the elastic. I'm using 3 pieces, 2 for the sleeves, 1 for the neck. To insert it, I attach a safety pin to the end of the elastic and feed it into the channel I made earlier. I'm going to be feeling for that pin and pushing it forward, then pulling the fabric back. Once I've pulled the elastic in far enough that the end starts getting close to slipping in as well, I'm going to safety pin that to the bodice so I don't lose it. If I do, I basically have to pull it out and start all over again. Pulling the remaining elastic through, I now have both ends sticking out. I'll just sew these two together, putting them flat like this to avoid any bulkiness. Once they're sewn, I'll just pull on the fabric to help it slip into the channel completely. Then I can sew that little hole shut. The last step is making the bow for the front. I'm using some satin ribbon that's about 3 inches wide. Perfect bows are deceivingly hard. Like, what is that? It's garbage.
He got the shot off! Good!
My preferred way of making perfect bows goes like this. I fold the ribbon in on itself until I get a length that's ideal for the width of the bow I want to make. I'm going to cut this into its own piece and sew it closed. Once sewn, I'll press it completely flat. Then I'm going to cut out 2 pieces roughly the same size as the one I just pressed. These will be the tails for the bow. I lay them down on top of each other diagonally like this. Then I sew them together up the middle. Then I'll just attach the 2 pieces together by sewing through the middle again, this time with the tails behind the bow. After cutting off any excess fabric, I'll pleat the ribbon once in the middle like so, and stitch that down. I know it's a lot of sewing on the same part, but bear with me. The last piece is the middle of the bow. I'm taking a small piece of ribbon and pressing it in half. Then I'll sew along the edge and proceed to turn it inside out so the seam is on the inside. This is easier if you have a tube turner, but I'm still living in the Stone Age. After 6 hours, it should be turned right side out, and I'm going to press it flat. Then I'll fold it in half and sew it shut at about 3/4 of an inch from the fold. I'll cut off any excess again and then proceed to feed one side of the bow through the tube I've just made. Then just slide it through to the middle of the bow. To finish it off, I cut the tails at a diagonal. All the while I cut this bow, I'm using to burn the edges to keep them from fraying. Burn responsibly, friends. Then I just sew the bow down to the front of the bodice, and it's finally finished! I like it. Like I said, I have plenty of these, but this is my first Halloween one. But certainly not my last. Oh shit. Bertram. No, but for realsies, I like the top a lot. It's actually my favorite peasant blouse that I own at the moment. I think I'm probably gonna go in and tack this bow up like this. It's tacked down in the middle, but it kind of likes to sag and tilt around. Otherwise, it's perfect. And I love it. So I'm gonna go get Taco Bell. But thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice Halloween. Make sure to remove all the razor blades out of your candy before you eat it. And have a nice and fun time. Bye!